Hello, this is another tutorial. This one is about Google Sites. Now, I've previously made a tutorial about Google Sites and the concept of building a website using either Google Sites or other tools like Wix or Weebly. Periodically, Google will update some of its apps. In 2016, Google has updated its Google Sites app, and you now have access to using the new sites. This is the URL. One way that you can get to it, sites.google.com/new. And this is the screen that you will get in the new Google Sites. In case you prefer to work in the old Google Sites, you have the ability to go back to the classic. So back to classic sites would just require you to click on the button in the lower left corner. But we're going to talk about using the new Google Sites. Now, this is one way that you can get to the tool. However, I think a more common or easier way is if you happen to be in any of the Google apps, so in your Gmail or Google Drive where I am now, if you go to the New button, and it has its usual cast of characters here, but if you go to More, you will find that there's Google Sites. And you may not recognize this, but this is a new logo for Google Sites. That's how you know that you're in the new Google Sites. And it will provide the screen that you had looked at earlier. Actually, this is one that I already had started. So maybe go back to the home here. So if you have sites that you've already created, recent sites are going to be listed like this. If you don't have any sites already built, this particular area will be blank. So let's go ahead and get started with the new Google Sites. I'm just going to go down to Create a New Site. Click on the lower right corner here. There is this button with the plus sign, and that will give you a new screen. This is what you saw previously. So before I get into describing all of the tools that are available, let's talk a little bit about why you might want to consider using something like Google Sites. First of all, Google Sites is a free app. It's part of the Google App for Education platform that allows you to create a website that could be used for things like an e-portfolio, a way to collaborate, maybe a digital repository. You can use it for digital storytelling or infographics types of ideas and projects. This is, again, it's a free website creation app. It's built right into your Google Apps for Education. And it's got a relatively short learning curve, especially if you're familiar with using any of the other Google apps like Drive and Gmail and so forth. You'll find that there's a lot of common looking icons that do a lot of the same tasks in other apps in this app. Okay, so let's get started here. Just quickly, briefly, talk about some of the areas and some of the tools. Across the top, you're probably familiar with these arrows. It's an undo and a redo. The little eyeball is a preview icon. The little plus with the person, if you've used any of the Google apps before, you understand that this is the ability to share or to add people to whatever the project is that you're working on. Then we have the publish. Whenever you see what they call the snowman, which is some dots on top of one another, that gives you access to more things, nothing we're really going to talk about today. Then you have three different tasks that you can do. You can either insert, you can work with pages, or you can work with themes. Now, as our stage changes, or as we hover our mouse in various areas, you'll see that you'll have some other pop-ups as well too. I'll describe those as we get into building our site. So again, you can build a site from an individual perspective. An instructor can have kind of a site that contains information for a particular course, or it could be a site that's for a program. So it could be a program site that contains lots of resources and that type of a thing. So there's a lot of different uses for what you might want to do. So in this insert area, this allows us to actually work on the page that we're currently working on, and we can insert a number of items. Now we have to understand that there are 3 different stages that you can be in working on this website. You can be in either edit mode, which is where you're going to do most of your work, preview mode, which is where you're going to take a brief look before your site goes live at the functionality. What does it look like? What would the page viewer or the website person who clicks on your website or enters the URL into a browser, what is it that they're going to see? And then finally, there's publish mode. So just as you would probably imagine, publish mode then it's a very quick motion. It allows you to then publish your website. It now goes live. You have a couple of choices of things you can make about who gets to view it and that type of thing. But you need to understand what mode you're in based on what you're trying to accomplish. If you're in edit mode, you don't have to preview if you kind of have an idea of what it's going to look like, but you cannot be in edit mode and just leave the site without going back through publish mode. Otherwise, the changes that you made will not be live on your site. So make sure that whenever you're making any changes beyond the original creation, you'll have to go back and publish. So kind of think about it as a save type of a situation. All right, so when we're talking insert here, we're talking about on this particular page. This is a page that we're on. And so you can insert text boxes where you can enter some words. You can insert images. You can insert things that come from the internet, or you can upload things from either your particular machine or from somewhere in the cloud. Now, since this is a Google product, they've also made it very, very easy to insert things from other places. So you can insert things from Google Drive. You can insert an entire folder. You can insert things from YouTube. You can insert a calendar, and this calendar becomes live. So as the dates move throughout the year, when somebody opens up the website today versus tomorrow versus the next day, it's going to show a different date on the calendar. You can also insert Google Maps, as well as the typical Google Docs that they show below: Docs, Slides, Sheets, Forms, and Charts. Okay, so let's get started and play around a little bit. So the first thing that you ought to do, just like anytime you're working in Google Drive, everything's always going to be untitled until you give it a name. So the first thing that we need to do is to give our site a name. So once I do that, and I click out of it, you can see that not only did it name the site, but it's bringing that name forward onto my first page of my website. So you can see that we have a box that's opened up here. We can add some text there, because right now it says your page title, but we have some other choices. We can change an image. So rather than having that dark background behind there, we can actually do some things with colors, depending on what we might want to do. You'll notice that that has changed our background. We can reset it if it turned out we didn't like that. We just might want to test a few things. There's also different types of headers. So we're on the default, which is the banner header. There's a larger banner. You see that it has extended our space here. And then there's a title only. So you have those types of choices. I'm going to name this as Home. Now I have some additional features here. I can deal with some styles, basically some basic headings. I can actually do some bold, italicized. I can do some centering. I can add a link so that somebody can click on this. I can delete it. And then again, we have more. I'm going to go back into the title and click off, and I've locked it in. If ever I have to get back in, I just kind of hover my mouse and click in it, and I now have the editing privileges again. So I can add a text box. And enter anything in there that I want, and I can click out of it. I can actually do various things again that we talked about. I can center things. I can right justify, left justify, what have you. I can also do some things where I'm grabbing these little balls, kind of drag handles, and do whatever I need to do there. So Again, I can add all types of different things. I just did a text box. I can add a URL for something. I can add an image. Let's go ahead and do that. So I have the ability to add them by a URL. I can go do some searching. I might have some albums already that I have on my machine that contains some images, and I can go to Google Drive where I might have some stored. I can drag the files here, or I can select the files from my computer. So let's say I'm going to do a search. And so I'll find my image and I'll select it. Now I do have some options here. I have various crop options. I can uncrop. I can hyperlink it so that somebody could actually click on this image and be transported to somewhere else, another page in my site perhaps, what have you. And then again, I have those drag handles. So we have a URL that we can put in place, things from the drives. I'm actually going to go in and I'm going to embed something from YouTube. So I can actually search what I need. It's going to search. There's my video that I'm looking for. I just select it and hit select, and now it's in there. And then we have it set to play. So someone visiting the site, if they wish to play this, would just click there. Again, calendars, maps, all the rest of the things. I've showed how to do some of these in the previous Google Sites video, so I don't want to spend a lot of time on things that are duplicated just the same, and spend more time on things that are different or visually the interface is different. So we've worked on this particular page, but usually a website has more than one page. So let's add some more pages. So I click on some pages. Before I do that, let's take a look at themes. That's a little bit easier to work through. Excuse me. So we're defaulted right now to the simple theme, and so we have a little color palette here that we can make some adjustments to decide what we might want to use. We have some font styles, light, classic, heavy. And then there's some other styles overall. Not a lot, but just gives you a little bit of information on something you might want to use. Okay. So let's say we're going to go with that. We're going to go back to our pages area so you can see that we have one page right now, and it's this home page. As I said earlier, most pages, in order to distinguish different content and allow you to maybe skip around, they'll create pages. So you'll see right in the middle here we have an add page icon, and then you just give the page a name. We'll keep it simple. And so now we're on page 1. Notice if I needed to get back to page, the original page or the home page, I would just go click on it, and now I'm back into the edit mode of that particular page. Page 1, page 2. Okay. So I now, if I wanted to go back, let's go back to pages in page 1. What I could actually do here is you see that we have our additional pages have already been added to our header. And if you're going to have a lot of pages, it can kind of squeeze this together a little bit. There'll be a spot over here that says more, and you could go to more pages. You know, assuming we had 10, 15 pages, this is only going to allow this to go so far, and then it's going to get cut off, and you're going to need to have other ways. So other things that you can do further on in the website is, rather than making people always go back to the top of the page, you could actually put a text box down here and then put your text of page 1, and then go in and use the insert tool to insert the pages. You could actually say, if I make a hyperlink here for page 1, it'll take me right to page 1. If you don't have a lot of pages, this way works real well. You can just go up in here and click on those pages. Okay, so let's do something with page 1. let's say I'm going to add an image just because I want to show you something else here. I'm going to go back to the search icon for the images. And notice some of the choices here. Results are shown are labeled for commercial reuse and with modification. You can click here to learn more. But basically what this is going to do is this is going to take you to images that you don't have to worry about any copyright issues. It's going to take you to essentially public images or images that are allowed to be reused and modified for commercial purposes. So I forgot to point that out early, so I just wanted to mention that. So we come up with our other topic, and we select that. So we have our page. We have page 1, page 2, go back to our pages, go back to home. All right, so we have some content on there. Obviously you can add more, and a lot of it's going to depend on the purpose for this. So let's talk about some of the other things that we can do. You can actually add editors to this. So earlier I had mentioned that you had the ability to use this tool for collaboration. So not only as a repository for storing stuff that you want to present to somebody down the road, but you can actually use this for collaboration. Just like any other Google sharing situation, you can add their information here, and you can change their privileges because everybody is going to have, right now this is private, I'm the only one who can edit it, but I can change that if I'm going to allow other people. Now it depends on what you want to do. Do you want to give them editing privileges? Do you want to give them view only? Do you want to give them view and comment? You have to decide. And then you have the owner settings down here where if I click, check this box, prevent editors from publishing, changing, accessing, and adding new people. So you're still the ultimate editor as the person who creates it, which means you can take stuff away. But if you give them editing privileges, they're going to have a lot of power on the site. So you just have to understand what that's all about. So let's assume I either done that or don't want to do that. So let me show you the last two things of what we need to have happen. The first is the preview button. So again, this is the little eye icon. And so if I click on that, we get a view of what this particular site looks like. Now, another thing that's new in Google Sites, it wasn't in there before, this allows us to check what's called the responsiveness. So this is a responsive site, and this tool down here allows you to check whether or not what the view is going to look like and whether or not it's going to look good on a particular size screen. So the default is to the large screen, which would be your computer, and then you have your tablet view, what it's going to look like on a tablet, and then what it's going to look like for a mobile device like a phone. Okay, so it allows you to check that out. So that's always a good idea when you're putting stuff together and you're not really sure how your audience is going to consume your content. So once I've previewed it, I can exit the preview and I come back to this particular spot. I could continue to work on it. I can make some edits if that's what I feel like I need to do. So I'm going to make that image a little larger. Whenever I'm all done, then I'm going to hit the publish button. So the publish button is going to put together the first part of your URL, but you need to give your site a name. And so it should be something that after your sites, there's some other pieces to it up front, you know, sites.google.com, and then you have the /baker.edu. So it's going to be kind of long, but you want to have this last part be something that would be recognizable. It has to be unique. If you put something up here that's already been used for another purpose, Google will not let you use that. So if you're going to use something for a particular class, you might want to be very prescriptive, you know, ENG 1010, F17 or something like that. And then that way, if you have to adjust it or do something different down the road, you don't want to just go ENG 1010 because there might be more than one of those. Then you have to decide whether or not, you know, the default is going to be that anyone that has a baker.edu, because you are building this in your Baker Google Sites app, would have access to it. You can open it up a little broader to anyone on the web, and if you check this box, this allows people to actually, using Google for the search capabilities, they could actually run across your site. Whenever you have finished this information here and you're feeling good, you just come down here and click Publish. Well, that's it. That's a run through of what you can do with the new Google Sites.